I'm still trying to figure out if I like my bangs or I hate them. Winnie's probably not going to come visit us because Mr. Pizza is eating lunch, and in case you're wondering, food is more important than me. Much more important than me. Hi kids, welcome back to another pizza party. I'm Mrs. Pizza, and we are here today to talk about some new and upcoming releases. By the time this video comes out, I think most of these will already be released, so if they are something that you are super interested in, you can go and find them immediately. But here are some ones that I recently heard about, saw, were circling my orbit, and I thought you might like to know about them too. Hopefully, maybe the air conditioning will stop blowing. If you can hear that, I apologize, but it's hot outside. Nothing I can do about it. The first book that we are going to talk about is Empire of Shadows, and this is by Jaquelyn Benson. This came out on April 2nd, and this is the story of Ellie, and she is a woman growing up in Victorian times, and she's feeling very oppressed. She just wants to be like a world-renowned archaeologist and well-educated, and why can't everybody just let her do that? Ellie has come into a map. I don't know how she found this map, but girl's got a map, and this map leads to an ancient civilization, and in finding this ancient civilization, this could change history, change the world. Who knows? It's a big deal. This is labeled as a historical fantasy, so I know there's going to be some sort of fantastical elements to this. But Ellie is going to go on this magical adventure expedition to find this lost ancient city, and she has to recruit hold please, because they described him in a very amusing way. She has to enlist the help of Adam Bates, who is a snake wrangling rogue. Holy, that is a tongue twister. A snake wrangling rogue who can't seem to keep his shirt on. And she has to recruit him because some evil villain also wants this map. And so going on this adventure, trying to race against the clock, race against this villain. The tagline is Romancing the Stone meets the Mummy. And everyone knows that The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser, is a cinematic classic and should be heralded as such. And so anything that says it's got the Mummy vibes, I am here for it. This sounds fun and funny. This is the beginning of a series. Who doesn't love the Mummy, right? Also, the cover is really cute. The next book we are going to talk about comes out on April 5th, and that is To You Shall All Flesh Come, and this is by Lumen Reese. This is the story of a very prestigious surgeon who, along with his team, captures vampires, harvests their organs, and sells them on the black market, and then tags those bad boys and releases them back out into the wild, like feral cats or sharks. I think in the synopsis they said sharks, but I immediately thought of how they clip feral cats' little ears so that you know they've gotten their shots and they've gotten spayed or neutered, and then they just unleash them back because they cannot be rehabilitated into normal cats. They must live in the wild. Anyways, vampires are not feral cats. They also apparently put some kind of mechanism in that's like said in quotations a pacemaker. It has some sort of level in it and basically keeps track of how much human blood is running through the vampire system. If it gets to be too much, it will damage the vampire's heart and kill them. And so this is a way of keeping the vampires in check, trying to keep them from over-consuming blood. I think it says trying to make them more docile. There seems to be an abundance of vampires in this world, and who doesn't like a story about a team of people that's harvesting vampire organs? I don't know if this is going to be funny, if this is going to be gory. It sounds like it might be both. It could be neither. Who knows? But it sounded like a good time. The next book that comes out on April 11th is The Book That Broke the World, and this is the second book in the Library trilogy by Mark Loritz. The first book is The Book That Wouldn't Burn, which I read and really enjoyed. It made it on my top books of 2023, and so I'm really excited about this book, seeing as how this is the second book. I'll tell you what the first book is about. The Book That Wouldn't Burn is the story of Lavira, and she is at the opening of the book, a very young woman who lives out in the dust. See, in this fantasy world, there is one large city where all of the main civilization is, and there's a great library there, but then the surrounding area is just called the dust. It sounds like it's arid, not much grows there, and people who live in the dust struggle. Lavira lives in the dust. She was born in the dust, she's grown up in the dust, until one day when a hostile force comes and takes over, attacks, and destroys her small town and forces Lavira and some of the other survivors to make the trek away from their town towards the one large city in this world. Things happen. Lavira over and over again proves that she's more than she should be. She's the best version of a person without seeming too Mary Sue, if that makes sense. She's just got a lot of empathy. She's paying attention. Lavira is the epitome of a good person in this world, but she's also got a fire in her. She's not going to follow the rules. She's going to blaze her own path. We are also following the story of a young man who lives in the library in the one large city in this world. See, this library is infinite. It is full of all of the possible knowledge. It has got magical security systems, and it sounds like a dizzying maze of aisles and rooms. It's very hard to navigate, and it doesn't sound like it's ever actually been completely navigated. It has a lot of secrets, and our character has grown up isolated within the library with his siblings who all have affinities for very specific things. We are getting these two points of view throughout time as stories weave and twist and intertwine. This is a really fun fantasy read. I really enjoyed this, and I'm really excited to see, because at the end of the first story, all of these plot lines and threads that have been weaving throughout the story all start crisscrossing, and you realize the whole time you've been given all the information you could possibly need to know what's going to happen. You just weren't paying attention to the right things. Are we about to bark at something? Hi, Winnie. So we had all these revelations at the end of the first book, which makes me really excited to pick up the next book and see where it goes. I will say I have listened to the opening of the audiobook for this, and I really love what the author did. Instead of trying to rely on the reader to have just finished the first book or to try and shoehorn in parts from the first book into the second book, they spent the first chapter just recapping all of the stuff you needed to remember about the first book. It's a very succinct version of this is what happened, and you need to pay attention to this, and this is where this character ended up. It was great. I loved it, and now I'm excited to get into the bulk of the story. The next book, coming out on May 7th, is The Ministry of Time, and this is by Kaliane Bradley. This is kind of making the rounds, I believe, right now. I think it might be like a major book club. Let me look. I think it's like a major book club pick. I don't know if it's like Good Morning America or Reese Witherspoon. Those are the two big ones, right? Good Morning America book club. This one is touted as a time travel romance. It says it's got a little bit of spy thriller and a little bit of workplace comedy all mixed into one. See, this is the story of a civil servant who has a government job, and she is a little bit hazy on what this job will entail until she gets in and starts realizing that she has been assigned as a bridge, which is a person that will work with these expats, as they are described, while through a government agency that is trying to figure out time travel. And so how they have tried to see if time travel will break the fabric of time and space, they've tried to do this thing where they remove people from the past and bring them to the future who are about to die. So they won't be missed. They wouldn't have made any impact further than the moment they were taken. And so our main character is a bridge, or basically a babysitter for someone from the past who has been brought, and they now need to be cared for. She gets tasked with taking care of, I believe it's like 1847 is the name they give him, but he is taken from the year 1847, I assume, and brought to present day, and now lives with her, and she has to teach him about how the world works, and this is just a complete culture shock to him. He has to deal with the fact that he has been completely thrust into a whole new world full of all the culture shock. I mean, the internet exists. The internet. This man has to be taught about the internet, not to mention central air, and refrigerators, and like yoga pants. Our main character is tasked with helping this person bridge this time gap into the modern day world. This also says there's just a really fun collection of side characters from all different points in history that are now having to live in the modern day world with their bridges. This sounds like it's sweet and funny and fun, and it's probably gonna yank on your heartstrings a little bit too, because I feel like all the Good Morning America picks that I've ever read, not that I seek them out, but anytime I find that I've read one, they like to poke at your heart a little bit too. It says it's a time travel romance, and that sounds super fun time to me, you know? The next book on my list is coming out on May 14th, and that is When Among Crows, and this is by Veronica Roth. And you might know Veronica Roth, because I know Veronica Roth, as the author of the Divergent series, which is a YA dystopian series that had its moment kind of around the same time as Hunger Games, a little bit later. Not nearly as good as Hunger Games, but you know, it was fine. This is actually this author doing an adult fantasy. This is an urban fantasy. I believe it's taking place in modern day Chicago, but it says like Slavic influence. This is the story of Dimitri, and he is a monster hunter from a long line of monster hunters. And it sounds like he and his family and all the people tasked with this monster hunting have to sacrifice a lot, including their souls, in order to be successful in this monster hunting endeavor. When he is tasked with finding Baba Yaga. This is a deadly mission. We don't know if he's gonna make it. And he ends up having to team up with someone that should be his arch nemesis in order to find Baba Yaga, avoid the Chicago underworld. It sounds like full of magical mafia bosses and all kinds of crime families. I think this is a little bit shorter of a book, but I'm really interested in this kind of monster hunting, urban fantasy with a little bit of Baba Yaga witch thrown in there. The next book we are going to talk about is Mind and Magic, and this is by Jenna Wolfhart. This comes out on May 17th, and this is the newest installment in the Falling for Fables, I believe is what this is. I'm not going to check. I'm going to say that with conviction. I'm going to say Falling for Fables. This is the third book in a cozy-ish type fantasy romance collection where we are following fantasy type creatures that are all on these small islands full of small fantasy towns, finding fantasy romances. The first book in the story is Forged in Magic, and that is the story of a half-orc mercenary and a grumpy blacksmith. The second book in the story is the grumpy blacksmith. I believe they're fae or elf. It's his sister and her dealing with a competitor at the local market. She is a tavern owner and she encounters another tavern owner, and it's kind of a rivals for 2 seconds and then we like each other type thing. And this third book is supposed to be happening in the mines where a competition is happening, and we have a dwarf who has some sort of magical something happen. A magical inconvenience, a magical obstacle, we'll say. I don't know if it's a curse, I don't know what's going on with her. But she has something going on, and when the mines hold a competition, the prize for winning this competition is something that might help our dwarf out. If she has it in her hands, she might not have this magical obstacle anymore, and one of the other competitors is a shadow demon, and then when the prize for the competition goes missing, these two team up to find the object, and I'm sure the chemistry and the romance happen along the way. These are fun and easy to get through if you need something light. They never make you feel bogged down with anything that's happening, and they're usually happening in pretty cozy settings. And the last book that we are going to talk about is The Throne of Honor and Blood, and this is by j.bree. This is the second full-length, sorry, a cat just walked past. I don't know whose cat that was, but they're in my front yard. This is the second full-length novel in this series, which is called The Mortal Fates. And since this is the second book, we're going to talk about the first book, which is on my TBR. I haven't read it yet, but I'm very excited to get to it. And that is The Crown of Oaths and Curses. If my battery dies and I don't get to find out what this girl's name is, I'm gonna be real upset. Our main female character's name is Roth, and she is a witch in a world where witches and the fae have been at war for as long as anybody can remember. And she is the next chosen super special magic something witch, as you do. When she finds out that she, through circumstances, is fated to help the Prince of the Fae, and these two get pushed together in order to save the world from some horrible, terrible ends, even though they absolutely can't stand each other. This is supposed to be a very slow burn 3-book arc that is enemies to lovers. So apparently in this first book, we do not get any spicy stuff, but this is an adult fantasy romance, so spicy stuff will eventually happen in the series. I have heard only good things about the series. I'm really excited to try it out. I love enemies to lovers when it's done right, and it sounds like these are really people who have been raised from the very beginning to absolutely hate each other, who have to work together, even though it makes them want to claw their skin off, but eventually chemistry is going to come into the mix. That is coming out on May 19th, the sequel to that, I should say, and I'm sure this is going to be the spicy one, because I don't know if you can make it all the way to the third book without a little bit of spice in there. But that, kids, is where we are going to end this pizza party. The air conditioning stayed on the entire time, so you could probably hear it this whole video. But if you had fun hanging out with me and the dogs who were here for 2 seconds and then left me alone, please subscribe. I hope you're reading good books out there, wherever you are. If you're interested in reading any of these books or you've already read them, let me know how it went. And I'll see you next time.